Welcome to the Soul Talk Podcast. I am the host, Jeffrey Tashlyk. This will be a place where I talk about my passions and interests, as well as talk to other souls about their passions and interests to better myself and you as a listener. If you have a will or appreciation to create, you're in the right place. I'll get into more of what I mean a little later, but more about me. Some people call me JT, Jeff, Jay, or just straight out Jeffrey. To be honest, I've never really liked people to call me by my first name unless it's close family or obviously someone I don't know or is older in age. But it just so happens that people end up picking up one of those nicknames once they really get to know me. And that's really been a foreshadow to one of my main traits is I'm always trying to get what I want. Who doesn't, right? But I really push for the things I want, and if I can't get it somehow, it almost always works out in my favor anyways. To a lot of people that might sound cocky, but to me, man, that's just who I am. I'm a very passionate person, very opinionated, very opinionated. Those things collectively were really my motives in me starting this podcast. That along with my intuition and other individuals with their own podcasts and whatnot. A little bit more about me, man. You have zero clue who I am. I'm a guy from Los Angeles, California. Born and raised in the Hollywood area. I recently turned 18 years old, a big milestone in my mind. I grew up loving the game of basketball at an early age. And not just like how everybody says they love basketball or really love it for what it is, but I feel like it's projected in a sense that isn't what it is most of the time. And I'll get into that more in a later episode. But basketball really started this tree of my interest, you can say, and they kind of went off their own branches. What I mean by that is basketball got me into sneakers at an early age, and that basically got me into my interest for business overall, and ultimately the path I'm trying to go down at the moment. I've really found my passion and style in those things, and ultimately have made that opinion side come out of me for sure. And I really want to emphasize myself in trying to be different in these aspects. I've always put that first because I feel it's not right if it's not unique. For the many of you that are listening at the moment, you probably know a little bit about me, but I don't think anyone truly knows me 100%. And that's really because I just don't really open myself up to a whole lot of people unless, you have similar interests or someone I can relate to. But I also just like doing things by myself. Another thing about me is I'm a very individualized person. And I feel it's really made my identity to a lot of people feel like I'm this behind the scenes guy. And I do want to bring those things into life for all of you to see. But also learn the things that I hope to seek in people I know or want to know and hopefully can get on this podcast for everyone to see. But going back, not that I care what others think about me, but I care for a proper representation in that of showing myself and what I'm about first and foremost, and then others can make whatever conclusion they want. Something I really believe in is good energy, and I feel it's upon me to put what I believe out there and start a conversation. I feel like conversation is very important. It can open doors you didn't think were possible because it just brings out an opinion side out of everyone. Because not everyone thinks the same. But that's also the beauty in it, bringing positive vibes and really moving away from anything that's opposite of that. And that's my understanding that everything intertwines and everything's about emotion and really energy. And you really need to do the things that make you happy and chase that feeling. Since I was a kid, I've always felt like I was super passionate about a lot of things, but more importantly, my intuition would really lead me to those things first before I even knew that I was going to like those things. And by intuition, I mean I literally had something in me telling me to do these things or things not to do. That voice in your head or whatever they like to call it. Cartoons, they depict it as like an angel on your right shoulder and devil on the left. But that's not really how I viewed it. It was always just one voice, not good or bad. But in that respect, my mind and my body would be the one to either choose to do those things or to not do those things. Which in that case, either dared the opportunity or missed out on, I guess, what could have been. And I think my immediate intuition wins most of the time. I say all that to bring the attention to this voice. Something that I heard not too long ago that really stuck with me was you really talk more to yourself than you do anyone else. It's that voice that never really shuts off in your head. I can definitely attest to that, and that's a real personal thing to me, and one of the reasons I made this podcast is not only speak my mind, but for you, the listener, to really understand where I'm coming from. In today's day and age, I feel like a lot of people choose to try and turn off that voice. And not just that, like people are seriously just living life to go by the days or just to see the Friday or the weekend. Everyone loves the weekend, shout out the weekend, but not that dude, like the actual weekend, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. Anyways, that shit really bugs me. Like if you for that, that's cool, but that's just not me. And I don't think it'll ever be me. And my passions are 24/7. Like, why would I not want to do the things I want to do 24/7? That also is to blame society for, right? But, there's so many things you can do and be happy with, earning income and, possibly passive income. I just feel a lot of people don't have the energy to do those things that they want to do. Are you following me now? It's a cycle. Whether you have that voice or not, you ultimately choose to do the things that you're doing. Whether you're meant for it or not, your job is to find your truth. I'm a firm believer in that. And if you're not happy, you're not listening to yourself. And if If you're not listening to yourself, then you're not doing the things you're destined to do. You might not even have energy to do those things because that occupation is bugging you to your grave. Now, I apologize because I'm not trying to get spiritual on anyone, and I respect everyone's belief. And I'm definitely not trying to make anyone feel bad. But I just want to put something out there for people to think about. These are things I truly believe in. In my mind, when I go outside, I see a lot of people just acting like bodies. Filling out tasks, no passion, straight face. And that's really where the name for this podcast came for, Soul Talk. It's to challenge people to tune into themselves, to listen to the voice, and be a soul, not a body, while hearing others' souls in their respective fields and what they're about. Yes, there will be guests on the pod, and this will be a guest-driven podcast. And there will definitely be episodes where it's just me. Like I said earlier, I'm passionate about a lot of fields, maybe the biggest one being business. This will be considered a business podcast, but that's a wide field. I love art, I love sneakers, I love music, sports, and most definitely conversation. I love to have a good conversation, especially if it's with someone that I admire. And in that case, I get to meet new people and make new relationships. Now, not focusing on celebrities or anything like that, but I hope that maybe one day you'll see a so-called celebrity on here. In my eyes, the guests that I'm planning on bringing are celebrities in their own right. Ones that own their own businesses or just truly passionate about something that's a celebrity for me, man. Someone who is endlessly curious about something and are just willing to pursue that thing and hopefully aspire to inspire others along the way. That's another thing. I personally want to meet new people, and I hope that this will be a new avenue for me to do so and take you guys along the way. I know somebody out there man, what is this for? Really, why? It's really all the things I mentioned. I also am trying to make a name for myself. I feel like this will be a way to do so, and I feel suits me the most. I really like the layout of a podcast. I feel it's underrated, so I guess you can say with my business instinct, I see the most opportunity here. I like what Gary Vee had said about in that of making podcasts. Shout out Gary Vee. And if you don't know who that is, he's a respected man in business, but he's known on social media for being a motivational speaker. But before I had heard him say anything about a podcast, I had really thought about this being a viable option for sure. So I started trying to get into listening to some podcasts, and so started with Gary's, and then kind of moved on to Ben Baller's and his podcast Behind the Baller, which I really fell in love with and how he ran his podcast. Not to dodge Gary, but I like some of the other things that he does on YouTube better, and he's somebody you can kind of just grasp with visual better. But anyways, his podcast was good too. I just happened to stick with Ben's more, and just really respected the way Ben spoke about certain aspects, and as he likes to say, being himself unapologetically. If you don't know who Ben Baller is, he's known for being a famous jeweler, but he has a lot of other business ventures, and he's like the definition of an OG to me. You probably heard him in A$AP Rocky's song before. Ben Baller did the chain or whatever. Anyways, him and actually a somewhat new podcast called Behind the Smoke featuring Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. I really admire how their podcast runs as well. Matt was somebody I grew up watching on the infamous Clippers team, Lob City era. But anyways, I really like how he leads that podcast, and they definitely have some great guests to go along. But I had no idea that dude was so well-versed, and yeah, man, I just really like his podcast as well. There's a few podcasts, but really I like those the most. Or really anyone that has a good guest on. You can have the worst movie in the world. If you got good actors, they'll somehow make it good. I feel it's the same with podcasting. But really even before that, I was a big fan of interviews ever since I was of understanding age. And essentially, that's what a podcast is, right? I just have always admired the way you can talk to an individual and really see where they're at with things and just examine the way they would describe those things. A good representation of that would be called The Shop. It was created by a media company named Uninterrupted, well known for being under LeBron and the many companies he associates himself with. And it's really this idea of bringing back the culture of where great conversation starts, usually in a very social place in our backyard, and reiterating that environment with some of the world's greatest athletes, musicians, business people, comedians, and other known individuals. For LeBron, that environment where he grew up was a barbershop. Braun briefly described how it was like. You go into a barbershop and basically all these guys are in there getting a haircut. Some are waiting to get a haircut and some are in there just not even getting a cut. As funny as it sounds, they would be in there just to speak their minds in the conversation that's going on in the shop. And so he made the show reimagining like a barbershop where they do actually get a haircut while they're sitting in the chair and while having a conversation. And I think it's a great show. I think it's not as appreciated as it should be. In my mind, a great idea and great execution, and I hope to see more people on there and hear more great conversations. I heard all these guys that I admire like Braun, Drake, Don Cheadle, Lonzo Ball, and the host and Maverick Carter. The list goes on, but very curious to see who's coming on every new episode, and that's the whole point, right? So definitely recommend it for anyone and everyone. Check it out. Speaking of conversation, something else that stuck with me recently was someone said, I think it was Drewski. Yeah, Drewski. Really popular on Instagram or whatever. Anyways, he was talking about how he got into memes and those type of videos and how he admired watching these videos. But sometimes he was like, oh, it could have been funnier if they did this, or why didn't he exaggerate that, like a critic. And then one day he's like, wait, why am I even thinking like this? I don't even do my own memes. Who am I to judge if I'm not doing anything to make it better? And it was like that aha moment, and that's basically how he got started. And I really resonate in that regard, in that I would literally picture myself in these environments like an interview or just a regular conversation. So now I'm here. I watched a lot of interviews in my lifetime, but I think I've listened to about all the Kobe interviews there is out there. I truly think there's nothing like it. At least in my opinion, Kobe is somebody we will get into the show later on. A very special individual, someone I admire deeply, and someone I definitely want to bring into light here on the show if he's on the dark side for you at the moment. His ideas and philosophy can be applied to anybody and everybody, and I really think that it should be shared to everyone. And I really want to emphasize the things he did off the basketball court, just like I said, his philosophies in general. And he should be someone that is talked about for generations and generations to come. So yeah, man, that's about it. You'll see a lot of episodes starting off. Will be some good friends of mine, and hopefully I can get some of these other guys on that are in their respective fields. I can promise you can prepare for anything. By that I mean artists, influencers, business people, all of that. If there's anything you got out of this episode, I hope that it's to tune into yourself and be a soul, not a body. Oh, and one last thing. Think about this question. If you would have dinner with 5 people, doesn't matter, dead or alive, who would it be and why? Let me know in the comments below. I'll put mine in there too. Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube is at the Soul Talk Pod. Yes, a visual soon be. And social medias are up and running now. Hope to hear from all of you soon. Peace.